to Google Games Chat, episode 9. Glad we could get started. Sorry we missed you last week. We were eating turkey. So let's start by introducing our panelists. Today, to my left, playing the role of Colt McCandless is a puppet.
Hello, I am international superstar and HTML5 advocate Colt McCandless. I can't be with you because I'm recording an Udacity course on HTML5 game development.
Oh, well, I'm glad we have the puppet because. Yes.
But I must know, Colt, what big teeth you have.
All the better to eat you with.
All right.
And so to my right, wearing the panda hat, our special guest star from the Android Friday game review, Daniel. Hello, Daniel.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. I heard here that we're not actually going to be reviewing Android games today, so I'm not sure why I'm here. But I did bring a hat, which is more than I have done in a while. So it's good to be here.
None of us really know why we're here.
It's
a time filler, really. And sorry, I should clarify. Dan Galpin, in case you're not familiar with him. I just call him Dan.
Yeah.
And to my far right, our not so special guest, John McCutcheon.
The boring one.
This is actually the facial hair table on this side. So.
Are we kind of going?
What are you talking about?
It's the body hair table.
Okay,
What are you talking about? I'm all facial hair.
That is true, but you don't count. And
I'm not very good at math, but you don't have to say that.
And to my far left, we have the non-puppet version of Wolf.
Exactly.
So, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
We have the wolves all around this side. All right.
We do. So we don't have a demo for this episode, I'm sort of sad to say. But maybe instead, I'll just start by asking you guys, what'd you eat for Thanksgiving? Did you make anything? That's the big question. So we'll start with Wolf.
I made Nutella stuffed chocolate chip cookies,
Ah.
Which were hilariously awesome.
Those sound, you really can't go wrong with Nutella.
No, you really can't. And you brown the butter, and it's ridiculous.
That sounds excellent. Dan?
So the only thing that was pretty interesting at the Thanksgiving table was a pumpkin sage soup, which tasted a lot like a butternut squash soup, but was slightly more orange. So,
Okay.
Not that exciting. Go.
John?
No, I don't make anything for Thanksgiving.
No?
Did you eat plaid?
Yes, of course. It's a plaid pie.
A plaid pie.
I enjoyed a nice meal though.
All right.
I mean, it is weird because we're here at Google, and my cooking muscles are completely unused.
Atrophied?
Yeah, they're atrophied. I don't even know what to do around a kitchen anymore. It's been so long. So, but Thanksgiving is a good chance to break them out again. They're all sore now, though.
Yeah, I feel like at Google we get a lot of special guests that have written cookbooks that have great sort of stuff, and we end up buying all these cookbooks, and then you have, at least for me, I end up not really cooking much.
But it does decorate your shelves in your kitchen. It makes you look like you know what you're doing.
That's true, and
that's the best part.
That's half the battle. So with that said, I think we can go right into our 5 for 5.
Okay.
We don't have a fancy graphic, so
do we get 6?
Puppet?
Do we get puppet cult responses?
4, 5.
I don't know. We'll have to ask the puppet if he's got anything to add.
I'm sure the puppet will.
Probably.
Well, since the Colt is playing Colt McCandless, clearly it's going to say things like, "I love HTML."
Absolutely.
Probably, and report on.
That can just be the answer to all of the questions, really.
Clearly, the answer is HTML5.
Absolutely.
Clearly.
And report on whatever
Have
he
you tried
read.
Chrome? It's excellent.
Purple Cow. All right, so I'm going to start
I've never used Chrome. Oh wait, sorry. Go on.
Actually, so side note, these Chromebooks really cool.
Yeah. Thumbs up.
Yeah, it's they're really nice. If you don't have a Chromebook, you should look into one.
New ones?
These are the new. They finally got the trackpad right, actually. On
the trackpad's nice. It's I feel like if those of you who have parents that might be asking for new computers for Christmas or something, this is a great notebook for your parents. Particularly if you plan on spending the holidays, not doing tech support.
I was going to say it's the most amazing thing to actually give a parent a computer and not expect to spend years doing tech support on it. It's incredible.
Yeah. So
how did you end up sending email to all of our friends again? All right.
So product plug aside, but I'm serious.
That was a spontaneous product
plug.
It was
not planned.
Nice.
We're just using these. These are really nice.
They're nice.
Wow.
Oh, they're so cool.
Yeah.
All right. So our first question.
Speaking of product plugged,
yes.
Suppose we live in a world of Google Fiber, where everybody has access to uber fast internet everywhere. How does this affect
How does
gaming?
this affect gaming?
Yeah.
I'm going to press the start button in the countdown. And we'll start with non-Puppet Wolf.
Non-Puppet Wolf thinks that like distribution is just it's over. You distribute digitally, which is and there's been a lot of controversy about like always on DRM, things like that. I'm not sure how I feel about always on DRM, but if you live in a world of Google Fiber, it's not going to be laggy. It's not going to be terrible. It's going to be just the way you interact with the internet, just like you go to Chrome, just like you go to any internet service. Am I wrong, or is like local installation of things going to be different?
I would take it a step further. It's not just like digital distribution. Like it's going to be something like on live. When you have that kind of bandwidth and that kind of latency, like why would I ever care to store anything locally? Like I would rather just have it stream.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess I don't know, Mike, and I don't know sort of all the technical details behind OnLive, but it seems like one issue that even with a super fast internet connection, you're never really going to be addressing is sort of the speed of light problem. As far as I know, you can't increase the speed of light without messing up time.
I was going to say that's not true. You can slow light down by sending it through water.
That is true, but you can't speed it up. Maybe if you send it through a vacuum. But the problem is, you can get a whole bunch of data really fast, but if you need that, less than 100 millisecond delay between when I press the fire button and my character fires, how do you deal with that?
I already get much lower ping times than 100 milliseconds today.
Well,
okay.
And also
I get ping times of like 10 milliseconds easily.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I think it's somewhere in between. Like I really think that the concept of installing software goes away. Whether that software is physically running on your machine or whether it's actually running on some cloud system is really going to depend on what makes sense for that piece of software. But I think there's a lot of things that are going to be able to run in the browser just because you're not going to have to worry about actually going off and it's not going to be slow, particularly to go and fetch textures. And all you're going to have is a cache basically for anything you're running. So I think for distribution it does eliminate that. For me, the exciting thing is that it enables all of these services which have a high bandwidth return connection. Like, if I want to jam with people or create live videos with people or do kinds of, that kind of stuff, all of those gaming experiences all of a sudden become really possible. Like there's jam with Chrome, but like times 100, it's where, that kind of stuff. Or the YouTube orchestra where everyone is really sitting in a different place, in the world. That kind of stuff becomes really possible.
I mean, really like real-time sharing of the stream on your screen to somebody else is,
yes.
One of the things that we found with Hangout games is that when people are explaining rules to each other, we're playing this board game together, we're playing Warlight, we're playing whatever, you can, you're like, oh, let me show you, and you just share your screen, and you're like, point, go here, whatever. And having that be as crystal clear and as, uncompressed as the stream, as the thing you're seeing there, is going to make a huge difference in how people interact with each other, how they plan. I mean, if you think about like Call of Duty, where I can have like a little pop-up window that is what the other guy is seeing, including his voice stream, including his face, including all those things. Like, it's going to be, it's like the like Aliens, where they're all sitting there looking at the bank of screens that represent all the people. Like, you can do that, and it's not a hardware headache for your home machine.
Sure. So, Todd, coming back to your point about latency, right?
Yes.
The interesting thing, if you have an online multiplayer game, right, and the video is being streamed to you, then you can actually co-locate all of the people that you're playing the game with can possibly be on the same physical machine, right? So the latency in terms of like client-to-client latency is erased,
fancy.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you only have the latency of your input control and the video stream coming back, right? And so like that's just one way, right? There's no interdependencies between me and any of the other players in terms of getting the video. But in terms of like, hey, I think the player's going to be over here in 10 milliseconds. If we're all on the same machine, we could even be on the same instance of the game.
Well, you can even take that. You can take that even back though. That if you're running a server, you can actually, with this kind of connection, you can actually have the server really doing everything, and having the front end instead of even if it's not actually streaming video in both directions, even if all it's doing is sending polygon data, across. There's a whole bunch of ways you can split that. But I think you're right.
Sure.
I think it just makes the whole interactive game.
That's a really interesting thought, where it's like you actually stream the display list for your graphics card over your internet connection, so it like renders really fast and beautifully on your own machine. Would that be bigger or smaller than just sending the
I don't know. I was trying
except that you're outsourcing. You don't have to have 4 video cards for 4 players on your server. You just have to send the display data, and then the video
You
card
have to cache things like vertex buffers and textures.
Well, I think caching is going to be a huge part of that anyway. Except that you don't have to sit there and think like, oh, I only have 8 gigabytes or 10 gigabytes of space on my machine, and I want to play this game. You're just going to dynamically stream those things out. And if Colt were here, he'd be all about instant. Oh wait, Colt is here. What do you want?
Oh. we need to ask Cole. We're actually going to have
Instant
more Chrome.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes.
All right, I'm gonna stop us there, and I'm sorry the countdown timer has spoken.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna move to our next question, which is, so I feel like lately, game releases have become sort of cultural events, and they're considered normal. It's not like, oh man, look at all these freaks hanging out in line for Call of Duty. It's like, oh, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2's out, or wait, sorry, Black Ops 2 is out.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Call of Duty 2, that was a while ago.
I think if
and it's kind of considered normal, and people make jokes about people are going
Super
to
Mario
call in sick
World
the next
4
day.
is coming out. Sorry, yeah. No, I know what you're talking about.
So yeah, that
League
part,
of Legends.
games has essentially, I think, in many ways entered the mainstream. But I still feel like competitive gaming, gaming as a spectator sport, has not yet entered the mainstream the way sort of current sports have. What do you think games need to do? What do you think the games industry needs to do to make gaming as a spectator sport more mainstream?
Well, clearly my answer is more Hangouts.
Okay.
But I think there are a lot of interesting possibilities for Hangouts there, like where you can actually have. If you think of just like poker, when you're watching poker on TV, sometimes they show you the cards of the guy. This guy's got this cards, this guy's got this cards, and what is he seeing? Like if everybody's sitting there like with a camera over their shoulder, or I don't know, wearing some sort of thing, or you're seeing their face from behind thing, and you're able to actually select between all those things around. For games, it's the same thing. Poker is a game. For these sorts of things, I think it's the same sort of thing. Like you're going to be able to have this like personal connection with.
It's very interesting as the audience if you kind of get to see what the state of every player's game view is, right? And you have that extra bit of information that the players competing don't have. Like, hey, I know that the guy's actually right around the corner and he's going to get fragged. But he doesn't know this, so it's exciting.
I think definitely, the key thing that's missing, honestly, is how, if you look at any sportscast today, it is so heavily produced. You have, you have 10 people that are all sitting in a room. You have people that are grabbing shots. You've got people that are moving cameras around, all trying to get you the best, the absolute best view of what's going on, including replays and everything like that. So to me, it's just honestly getting the production values up to where the fact, there should be stats coming up on the screen for every player, where they've been, how they've done in these various matches. Some of this is already there. I mean, if you actually watch. I was going
to say, if you watch, when I was in Singapore watching the StarCraft on TV, it was like, holy cow. Yeah. This is all, I didn't play a lot of StarCraft, but I was glued to the TV going like, Zergrosh, don't you know?
But I think the thing that's, missing is actually designing the game so that it's ready from out of the box to be used as a spectator sport. So that all of those controls and hooks and everything like that is there, so that it actually is ready to have that kind of production.
Well, League of Legends is an example of a game where they've really got that right because their camera is at the 3/4 view. I use my wolf here as a thing. Yeah. It uses a 3/4 view where it's like, you can see everybody, you can see what's going on. StarCraft works the same way. If you've ever watched like really awesome people play Counter-Strike. You don't see anything. You see just like a blur of polygons and occasional like gunfire. It's
you basically everything is replays and that. You want to be able to catch.
Do you think first-person shooters just can't work as a spectator sport?
Well, no, because Halo's got the new cinema mode, right?
That's true.
And one of the I think it was Activision, Call of Duty, one of those guys had a way you could upload videos and like reproduce them and see
the
them.
latest Call of Duty, I think, let you sort of instantly upload your stuff to YouTube. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. And I think that's another thing that's going on here too, which is that like any football games are really big, but they're really expensive and they're hard to produce because you got to get 60,000 people all in the same place to like watch this, and you got to fly 200 people around. An online game that we're playing competitively doesn't require that much effort, which means I think you're going to need a way to, like a cinema mode or something like that, to assemble highlights and make it into something. And then there's got to be a community that cares enough that they're going to want to export those to everything. It's sort of like, and I think League of Legends is at that point now.
I'm watching League of Legends in tournament. I got to watch it when I was at PAX this year, and that it's phenomenal. It absolutely is an event the way they put it together. I mean, it certainly isn't lacking production values. I felt there was a little bit, one of the things that's problematic with League of Legends, even the way they had it set up, and that was certainly the best video gaming, watching experience I've ever had, is that I still wanted more connection with the people who are actually playing the game versus their character avatars. Like I want, like when people die, you should actually see, like, it's got to be a human thing. It should be like you're dealing with a reality show kind of thing, where you actually see the superimposed, actual person who's controlling the player as much as else. And one thing that would be even fun would be even, as you get further along, to actually think about how you map the emotions of the person who's playing onto the avatar that they're controlling. Like you actually get some potentially, interesting things there. You basically have, real-time versions of the Polar Express or something like that, where you actually
actually see people. Well, when
yeah.
you can actually see people's arm gestures and things like that. Like I think that's a thing, and the cast.
Ooh, can't show that on TV.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, sort of along with
Go there first, huh?
Yeah.
No, we've got a question. No, what about alternate reality gaming? Andre's asking about that.
Oh, yeah.
Side.
what is he asking?
Alternate reality gaming is called ARG.
Yeah, he's talking about, Ingress is an example.
Okay, like
an ARG,
augmented reality.
or I Love Bees or something like that.
Yeah.
Augmented reality games.
Thinking alternate reality gaming.
That's like Second Life we're gonna have, but
pretty alternate. I think, that's interesting because I know when I Love Bees was huge, and that was, for those of you who aren't following the bee references, that's the ARG that they made for Halo. To try to get everybody sort of centered. I forget which Halo release it was. It was
Halo 2?
2? Yeah,
maybe?
something like that. Where they were trying to get everybody into the backstory of the game so that when it came out. And I think, going to think about these are cultural events, games that have huge marketing budgets, their goal is to make it a giant cultural event versus like an indie sleeper hit that's going to, I'm going to sell this for 7 years, But they ended up assembling like a whole website with like everybody, and they had like they were people reporting back on the phone calls that were going out to all the weird numbers around the country. Like it was really neat. I have to admit I was sort of overwhelmed by like trying to join that community. Like I didn't even know where to start. But that was definitely a place where people were sharing that stuff online. And I think now that we have much more complicated social networks that have farther reach, I think an ARG could be neat to be following in real time. It's not really a spectator sport like what you're talking about, but it is a place where it's like it sort of explodes online.
So we're out of time, but I'm going to add my final thought because I'm the MC and I get to do that, which is that I feel like with the exception of maybe sort of world championships, like I can watch a League of Legends game. I don't really know who to root for. It's like a group of 3 guys. It's sort of along with making connections with the players, but I also think like these guys need to just start creating regional affiliations. Like
Totally.
I can go to any baseball game. If I didn't know baseball, I could still go to a baseball game and know, well, I'm going to root for the team that represents my city. Like you can just do that.
Yeah, you're going to wear an orange panda hat.
I'm going to wear an orange panda hat and look ridiculous, and it's going
right.
to be okay because I'm from San Francisco and that's the team I know I am supposed to root for. I feel like there's nothing right now that connects me to a particular League of Legends team unless maybe it's the World Championships and they're representing America.
That's right.
So
I do think this comes to avatar customization too, which is like if people are carrying banners behind them that really tell these guys on your side, these guys are on your side. I think all of this stuff is about signaling to the player what's going on. And anytime you're dealing with cameras, anytime you're dealing with spectators, what's going on is really hard to tell. Only games that are analogs of actual sports that have already figured that out, like basketball games and football games, really have that figured out. Like, I mean, can you imagine? It'd be really cool to watch like a spectator game of like Splinter Cell. Maybe it would just be a lot of watching people.
watch people
move.
wait.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I was going to say.
All right, let's move on.
Sorry,
All right,
it's fun talking.
Speaking of length,
yes, we were kind of. So this was a question that Colt proposed.
Yes,
and
that
then
question.
he proposed the question, and then he didn't show up for this, and so
At the last minute, I
Yes.
might add.
yeah.
the
So
audacity of that person.
The audacity.
so the question he was asking is, in the modern gaming era, when is a game too long? I think the point he's trying to make is like maybe now that we're all kind of playing on phones and tablets and that sort of thing, like gaming sessions should be shorter, or that would be the more ideal. And I guess because John is adjusting his mic, we'll start again with.
No, all right. Okay. Here we go.
I think John.
It's not the length of the game that matters. It's how long it takes you to get in and out. Right? Like, I would love to play a very long game that takes
Sorry.
that I could play on my phone. But if it takes a minute to launch the game, like that eats
Well,
into
I
my
think this is
10-minute time window of playing the game.
This is
so
a
I need
huge
something
deal with
that's-
mobile gaming. Like I always thought this was an incredible weakness of the PSP was like waiting for that disc to spin up.
Yes.
The joke was always that my DS is a great thing to do while I'm waiting for my PSP to boot.
I've never heard that joke. That's funny.
No, it's true.
It was true for me too.
But we still like you, Sony.
I love
Yes.
you.
I mean, I've been playing XCOM a lot lately, right? And sometimes I have 30 minutes to play this game, and that's enough to play a short mission. But 5 minutes of that is spent booting into the game. It's getting turning the PS3 on, and then seeing all of the logos.
I was
for
going to say,
all the
we need
middleware
more
that
animated logos at the beginning.
Yes, yeah.
Especially games that are licensed, so you have to have like 3 licensees,
yeah.
and then it's awesome.
One of my
love
greatest pet peeves are people who do mobile games, and the mobile game insists on playing at least 2 or 3 videos. And in some gaming worlds, they might actually be doing something like loading things during the videos, but invariably they're doing nothing while those videos are playing, and the user is just saying, "I just want to get into the game so I can have my 5 minutes of gameplay."
Show me as
Oh my
many of your kind of animated logos as you want, so long as you're actually loading my saved game while you're doing it.
And the worst thing, and the other thing is, is that in terms of mobile gaming, you just want to be exactly where you left off as quickly as possible.
Colt says games should be links.
Links. So
I like this character.
I like
cartoonization.
It's very easy.
I feel like the puppets had more insightful comments so far.
I was going to say, Colt, what big glasses
you're invited
you have.
back.
Oh boy.
Where was I? Oh yeah. So so to me, I think the genius is something like Angry Birds, and I went back. I took a long look. Why was this game such a crazy breakout success? I had played games with almost the exact same gameplay before, but it was you get in fast, you get out fast.
Yeah.
The levels, the things you feel a sense of accomplishment quickly. Like a level in Angry Birds, a lot of them take 30 seconds, a minute to complete. Boom, I've accomplished something. I've made some progression, But yet, to actually get through the entire thing is a long
it's a
slog
relationship
of an experience.
and there's good data that the longer people interact with your game. I mean, it's sort of obvious, but you can actually see it. It's like the longer people interact with your game, the more they talk about it, the more they share it with their friends, the bigger the viral hit of your game is going to be. Games that this is why Dark Souls it takes a long time to get through that. Games that you sort of fire and forget and you're over with in 3 minutes make a big splash for a week, and then everyone's playing them and it's over.
It's a slow burn of a game.
Daniel, as our Android expert, do you have data on sort of the average play session time that people typically spend with games?
It's funny
we
don't. I mean, and that's partially because on Android, we don't track what people do. I mean, that's just that simple. We don't have any hooks in to see what people are doing. I'd love to know that.
Can you guys
simple.
email us?
We
and
don't.
just
If some developer wants to tell me, that's great. But we don't track any usage on Android, so we don't really know. We only know when someone installs something and when someone uninstalls something. Essentially.
Yeah, I mean the game developers themselves are annotating the game with analytics all over the place. You'd hope, and if you aren't, please do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Help us.
Yeah.
And if you are a developer, put something in the comments right now, and maybe Lewis will tell us.
And from what I gather from the game companies, though, it really depends on the game. There are games that appeal to a really hardcore gamer. Those sessions are longer. By definition, they're longer, especially since a lot of them don't have a good way of pausing in the middle of the action necessarily. So obviously, those game times are going to be very long. Something like Angry Birds, it's very short. I think that Rovio has actually released data about how long the average Angry Birds session is, and it's actually it was longer than I expected. But I think that's simply because the game is so ridiculously addictive. But yeah, I think there's no limit to the length of a game. In fact, what we've seen is that the games that are most successful are the games that build a franchise, the games that continue to add and add and add content. As long as the content has value and the consumer feels like they're not just rolling through the same mechanics over and over and over again, they'll play out a long way. In terms of content. So I don't think there's any such thing as a game that's too long. Certainly, there is a game that's too large in terms of how much space it takes up on the device.
There are games that are too long, though. There are definitely games that overstay their welcome. But it's much more. That's much more about the artistic side, where it's like, I haven't done anything new in a while. This plot went off the rails.
This level feels like padding.
Yeah.
I think Dan was getting at that, right? Like, oftentimes I'll play a game, and the first half an hour, I'm loving it, right? And then I'm like, hey, you know what? This half hour just feels like I'm doing the same thing again and again and again.
We're gonna move on, but we do have a.
Yeah, you guys were talking about platforms, and you brought up the PSP and all these different
Chrome.
things. And there's the new Wii U. We haven't talked about the Wii U yet. Pedro was asking, do you find that today's platforms, Xbox, PSP, all the ones that are out there, are they sufficient for today's market? Will the Wii U do something brand new, and what's missing? I just want to get your take on the console market today.
Good question, Pedro.
All right, Pedro. So I have a Wii U. And
how you enjoy it? They are.
It's great. I have Nintendo Land and Mario. And so Mario, everyone knows what you're getting when you buy Mario. But Nintendo Land actually has some really interesting gameplay ideas, and I would consider that it's not technically new in that it's like groundbreaking, but it's never been attempted to be done on this scale and to this kind of mainstream audience, which is like asymmetrical gaming. Like one of the games that we keep playing over and over and over again is Luigi's Mansion or something like that. And it's not the old Luigi's Mansion. It's like this. It's essentially a mini game where the player with the tablet is a ghost and is trying to take down everyone who's looking for them. The other players are using the old Wiimote controllers.
So it's Splinter Cell.
I don't know. Not exactly.
Mario Splinter Cell.
So the other players have a flashlight, and if they point it at the ghost, which they can't see on the television, the ghost lights up and takes damage, and then when the ghost gets down to 0 health, game over.
But the flashlight has some timer on it.
The flashlight has batteries which will appear randomly, but that's a great trap for the ghost.
X-Files flashlights that they're only like this wide, no matter how dangerous the thing is.
It doesn't matter. Like it's very targeted. But that game is ridiculously fun because of that the extra information that the ghost player has, which is you can see everything. You can see where every player is, what's going on, do they need batteries, where the battery is going to be, and so you can be kind of like lurking around a corner, and they're like kind of flashing around, checking everywhere. It's like they go for the battery, you take them down. But as soon as you take,
you're like, I like games where I get to lurk. Lurking is good.
Well, and then the other players try and resuscitate them. So it's like this weird
I like games
dynamic.
Where there's a danger where my friends are just trying to pull themselves back to life.
No, but it's this weird dynamic where the power, whoever is the most powerful in the game is always going back and forth. And it's all built around this idea that one person who's playing the game has extra information, extra knowledge, which gives them an edge. But still, the game is balanced.
I've seen there have been source engine mods that had games like that where one guy can run up walls and everybody else can't and things like that.
Yeah.
I think that kind of game is pretty cool.
I think the great thing about that kind of device is really just the ability to do a lot of things. Like you can do a lot of the same things with any computer and any kind of second screen device, whether that's an Android device or a Chromebook or whatever you might have. But what's great about that is that it makes it absolutely real time. I mean, that the technology there is that your display is coming off of the Wii U,
Yeah.
and so it is as fast as it can transmit the bits over the air, and that to me is really the only difference between that and actually just having a tablet sitting next to your console, is just how real time you can do it.
So this goes back to our latency conversation.
Yeah,
I was going to actually.
It's not only latency, right? Because it's keeping the two in sync, right? Like, hey, I've got a tablet and I can have a second screen experience, but how do they synchronize with each other? How does the game actually initiate? Where since it's all running on the Wii U, they're just in sync automatically.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I'm really excited about, with the latest version of Android, is we actually finally enable something that I've wanted for a long time, which is true multi-display. So, today, in theory, you could actually hook up true multiple displays coming off of a single Android device. And
so, are you chaining it with cables, or how does
well,
that work?
you could. I mean, on something like the Nexus 4, you actually can do it over Miracast. You can do it over Wi-Fi Direct. And you can actually, and that display is completely driven by that device. It's just a stream that comes off of it, and it's.
I think that's how the Wii U operates.
That actually is. It's very similar to how I think the only thing about the Wii U is that they have customized it so that they have minimal latency and all of that.
Yeah, it's crazy how low latency is. I mean, I've held it up and been watching the game on the TV and on the tablet, and they're just mirrored, and it's imperceivable.
Going back to latency, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to. Going back to I was going to kind of tie it back to our original question of what are consoles missing? I mean, that seems like a nice feature. I don't know if that's
I'll say on the Dreamcast we have the second screen right there, my friend.
I remember back when the Dreamcast was around.
Back in my day,
16 columns by 16 columns.
I was amazed at how many different gameplay experiences that enabled, though. Like the little Dreamcast. I mean, everything from little mini games that you would do on those things. Sometimes you would even take it away from the console.
Oh yeah, the little chaos things from Sonic Adventure.
They were great, except the battery lasted about
that. And then they added that huge noise whenever it turns on, saying my battery is dead. Yes. And of course, I still have my Dreamcast, and you plug it in 12 years later, and it's I don't even know if I can buy a battery for this, and it's going bleep, save me. No, but it is interesting, and I think going forward in time a little bit from when dinosaurs roamed the earth, there was also Four Swords, Zelda Four Swords, where you plugged in. It was such an expensive thing to set up, but when you did it, it was so cool. Yeah. We played a ton of that, where you have a GameCube and then four
GBAs.
Game Boy Advances hooked up to it. And I think actually, when you think about where the Wii U came from, they have absolutely been interested in this for a long time.
All right, I'm going to stop us and move on to I guess what will be our last question, which is.
So I'm Chrome.
Yep.
That's Chrome is the answer.
So I'm pretty sure. Dan, I don't know if you've actually worked in the games industry.
No. I have no good answer to this question.
Wow. All right. So you're not allowed to answer.
I worked for
Chrome. I know everyone else and Puppet Cult has worked in the games industry. We might have people who are in the industry.
I worked my paws to the bone.
But we might also have people who are wondering, hey, how do I get into the games industry? So
I worked on the pause menu.
I went to school for gaming.
Oh no! Oh,
Halt!
It had to happen.
What big eyes you have?
That was funny.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry.
That was funny. The pause menu.
Anyway.
So, all right. So, how did you get your jobs in the game industry? What advice do you have for people today that are looking to get into the industry?
Well, I went about it in, I think, the most difficult way possible because I got a PhD in AI and then worked on weird postdoc stuff and then was like, you know what? I'm tired of the public sector. Let's try private sector. And I sent my resume in to a recruiter that I found on the internet. I did it about as badly as you could possibly do it. However, then working with the recruiter, I think the main thing that especially AAA developers are looking for are people who can code. If you want to be an artist, there's a whole other conversation, and that is actually, we should put that on our 5 for 5 at some point too. How to be like paths in that aren't just developer, straight coder, but you need to be able to code. Like you're gonna be tested. You're gonna be given a test. You're gonna do this stuff just because there's so many people who want to develop games because it's fun and it's neat, and it's got a lot of glamour. Sort of. It's like I'm
perceived glamour.
Remember all those,
remember
all those red carpet parties?
Yeah, actually, I went to one. I went to an actual red carpet. They had when we launched the Dreamcast once. Yeah, and E3's like
all right,
fun.
Yeah, E3's
but yeah, it's not. If you want to go to parties, you should pick a different industry.
So, totally to your point. How I got into the games industry was in grad school. I wrote a real-time 3D collision detection and physics engine that was comparable to Bullet and Havoc. And then Erwin Koemans hired me to work at PlayStation to optimize Bullet for the PS3.
Mm-hmm.
And that was exactly it. Like I just wrote an actual physics engine from kind of nuts to bolts, soup to nuts, or whatever.
This is a big deal. Like you,
and that was it. It was like, here's my portfolio. It's a fully working engine.
Mm-hmm. And if you're looking for engine work, I mean, you should build the things that you want to work on.
Yes.
Although I will say you may end up working on things that you didn't know. I mean, my first job was sports.
You will end up working on things almost certainly.
Yeah, but almost certainly you're going to end up not really doing what you want. But the advice that I give to
welcome
everyone,
to life, kids. You're not going to do what you want.
Get ready for disappointment.
Life from here is nothing but pain.
The advice I give to everyone who asks this question is write the engine. Like if you want to be an engine engineer, write an engine. Like in your own time, by yourself, do the hard work, and you'll get a job so easily. If you just show up with a resume like, hey, I graduated with a computer science degree and I want to write a game engine, good luck.
Well, the thing is, in the game industry, you're looking for builders. You're looking for people who just like, if you leave them alone in a room with a laptop, they will start building a game.
Exactly.
When I was interviewing, when I was interviewing other developers, this is what I looked at. It was like, are you a builder? Are you the kind of person
I
who
would always ask, like, what software have you written in your spare time?
It's
the biggest indicator.
Yeah, some people who've got really, really interesting and active outside of work lives, which generally aren't game developers. But sometimes there's some slack there. It's like, oh yeah, I do like free climbing up like Half Dome every weekend. It's like, okay, fine, that's pretty cool. But otherwise, it's like yeah, you should be building. Like you're not just like a huge player. You're a builder. Game jam games are a great way to get into the groove of that. But long-term projects are also really good. Also looking for ideas. Like if you built, I built Space Invaders, and you're like, well, Space Invaders is cool, but we've all kind of played.
See, but that's not on the scale that's required, right? Like, high-end console gaming requires programmers of like a very high skill level, and they have to be able to build like. It's not enough to be like, oh, in my spare time I built Space Invaders. You have to build like a real-time 3D engine with like the latest algorithms, and then you're going to get a job.
You're disagreeing a little there.
Yeah, I mean a little because there's very clearly jobs in the industry that don't require writing game engines from scratch.
Yeah, I was going to say that the hardest thing is the thing about game engines is that it's very hard to find people who've actually worked on the core of them, because the vast majority of people who work on games never touch the engine. They're working on all of the stuff around it, whether it's tools or whether it is simply on creating content. I mean, there are some people who've gotten jobs in the game industry just because they've created the most awesome mod, for some engine, for example.
Mods are an interesting way in.
Mods are actually.
Wasn't Counter-Strike? Didn't they get
hired
by?
Something like that, yeah.
They got bought by Valve, right?
Well,
like way back in the day.
Yeah, and there are other people who build really great mods. And I remember hiring people who had like a lot, especially people who were coming from less traditional CS backgrounds. It's like, but you're huge into the modding scene. It's clear what work you're doing. If you want to be a level designer, making mods is absolutely the way to go. Because I mean, that's basically your job when you're a level designer. Is take some guy's engine and change it so it does the thing that you want to do. Learn to code, kids. No, but more than learning to code.
The best way to put it is to build.
Learn to build. Learn to build things that are, and also things that are finished. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say because it's really easy to make a bunch of things that aren't finished, or at least get to the point in which they make a clear demo. And I think that's that's also and there's a maturity to setting out to building projects that requires you to have that kind of like, the demo looks like this and I'm going to get there in 3 weeks kind of thing versus I'm just going to build an engine and see what comes out.
Yeah, I mean, building an engine is a trap, right? And it's a huge time sink because you can just keep iterating on different engine subsystems over and over and over again and improving them, but what's to show, right? It's a lot of fun, but you have to have a compelling demo. You want to have the demo drive the engine, not the other way around.
I worked on an indie game for a while, and I got way into the hat maker. And it wasn't like a 3D game; it's like a 2D game. But I had these little animated guys, and they all wore hats. And then I like had to attach the hat, and I had all these attachment points, and I like an XML format, so you could, and a tool where you could lay out all the hat points, and then the hats themselves could like rock back and forth as they walked. And then I eventually added particle emitter points on the hats. I was like 2 months into this, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This adds no value to this game.
Actually,
But,
I think
but
that's
the
sort of
excitement
important.
about that kind of feature, though, is exactly why.
That's why you need a producer. Yeah. So if you want to be a producer,
Yes. Yeah, you go find people like Wolf and tell them to stop working on damn hats. Boom.
I mean, and that's a good skill. It's like, you can keep working on a game forever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And sort of knowing sort of where to get, the most bang for your buck, knowing how to prioritize, knowing like, hey, this is actually a point where you can either, just release it on Congregate as like our finished game or something like that.
Or unfinished game, but like get it out there. I mean, the other thing, the other habit, and it is an absolutely natural thing to do, and it's true of every kind of art, including games, is not releasing it because it isn't perfect.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna happen. I can tell you from shipping AAA games, they're chock-a-block with things that you wish you could fix. And you just ship them because the money's over. You got to get out of there.
Yeah, after being in the games industry for a while, I was kind of disturbed by how shoddy these games actually are, but how well they come off in the final form.
Well,
like,
you spend your time on the things people do, and just don't look behind that thing. Don't try to
time
balance
with the games like a month before they come out. I'd be like, holy crap!
And
then it's just like in that final month, it's just, we got it.
That's because you don't sleep during that entire month, and all you do is you crank on.
Well,
buttons.
and I think actually it depends on the kind of game too. Like, I think some of the most polished games out there are some of these puzzle games. Where that initial experience, because that puzzle experience doesn't necessarily change all that much. It's very, very focused.
And that's a good producer and level design thing too. Like come up with a puzzle structure and then build amazing levels out of that. That's going to get attention.
Tools that allow you to very quickly.
Tools. And of course, every hour you're spending on tools to build the level, you're thinking, I'm not shipping this game. But of course, there's some
you can't go too
feedback.
far that way.
And then you end up making the damn attachment points.
And then you're selling Unity. That's
your product.
Well, and that happens to game companies where they turn into tools companies because it turns out they're really good at making tools and they're not so good at shipping things.
All right, so we are way over.
We're not saying that about any particular.
We are way over on that subject, and we're actually kind of used up our time, so we're going to finish with a quick round of what are you playing. So I feel like I've been starting with Wolf.
No, you got to start there.
So I got to start with John, who's going to say XCOM.
No, I've been playing the Wii U.
Right.
But in particular, my obsession with Scramble with Friends has kicked back up. I'm now top 3% globally.
Wow.
I like that game too much. But it's,
are you using?
What's great about it is that it's 3 minutes. For one round is 3 minutes, so I can very easily sneak it in anywhere.
All right.
What about you, Dan?
Mr. Galpin?
That's a good question. I actually, the last thing I played an incredible amount of, I'll say right now, Expendable Rearmed. I was actually really thrilled that came out on Android.
Say that again.
Expendable Rearmed.
Expendable Rearmed.
Yeah, it just came out again. It was a Dreamcast game.
Oh my God! Expendable.
Yeah, and it's now.
Back when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Exactly. Speaking of Dreamcast, developers just recently brought it to Android, and I'm really happy with it. So
I think that's an incredible trend, by the way, of bringing some of these especially lesser known titles. Expendable was fun. It actually turns out. I mean, there were things you would do to it. And of course, they've had time to do that to it. And then, I've seen a bunch of PlayStation 2 ports appear on Android and been like, oh wow, oh yeah, that was awesome. People should totally play that.
Well, I was excited. Jet Set Radio just came out for Android. Speaking of blasts from the Dreamcast past, but Expendable is probably the one I'm playing the most now.
So let's see. So obviously Skyrim. Although I reached a point yesterday where I was like,
Still a Skyrim?
yeah, still. Well, it's a long game.
Long
I don't have a
game.
whole lot of. I don't have a lot of hours in the day.
Yeah.
But I reached a point yesterday when I'm like, I think I could probably take a break and play something else and come back to it later.
I am tired of talking to these people. I would like to do something else.
A little bit of that. I'm really tired of the guards. I hate the guards. Just So I actually have sort of been playing a whole slew of mobile games, just kind of trying them out. I don't always play on iOS devices, but when I do, I enjoy Letterpress. That's actually a fun game. It's kind of a word competitive game. It's a little stressful because it is awfully competitive.
Yeah.
Because John's playing it.
Yeah, it's a.
But not yet.
Yeah, it's a. And surprisingly, I have found that out of the decorator games, like kind of build up your city ones, the licensed ones, normally, you say licensed game, maybe stay away. I feel like the licensed ones have all been better than average. Like Simpsons Tapped Out is quite good.
Yeah.
The My Little Pony game is much better than
really?
it has any right to
Really?
be.
Yeah.
The Littlest Pet Shop game, very nice 3D models. I was all very impressed with all of those.
Yeah, I was going to say,
you
have a long list of these sorts of games. Are you?
I am not. No, really. I'm just. I realized. I haven't played mobile games in a while. I'm just going to go through the top 20 list and give them all a try. So
Todd,
that's kind of what I've been doing.
When you mentioned My Little Pony, all of our viewers dropped off. So nobody.
I want to make it clear, I'm not a brony.
Brony.
I am not. I've never seen the show.
Brony?
Yeah. So I will say that
You don't know about bronies?
The other game that I got completely wrapped into this last week was Dominion Online.
Yeah.
I actually
is that the which version is
it's
it?
the GoCo.
Yeah,
it's the GoCo.
it's tight.
It's
fantastic.
So well done.
And I believe it is in HTML.
It
Played on
runs.
Chrome.
It runs fine on Chrome. I've got it right here on my Chromebook.
I picked up the. I picked up the Humble bundle for Android, and I started playing Machinarium, which it's an older model, but it checks out. No, it's a Flash game. It's a point-and-click adventure. I had poked at it back when it was in Flash in the browser, I think, and I was like, oh, this is neat. I don't have time to do this. Wandered away. And then I put it on my Nexus 7, and I was playing it, and I started playing at midnight thinking, well, these point-and-click adventures are sure going to put me to sleep.
Yeah.
And an hour and 15 minutes later, I'm like, I have to stop clicking. But it's clever in 100 ways, beautiful art. Yeah. One interesting thing about it, especially when you compare it to another thing that came in the Humble Bundle, which was the sword and sorcery, the hash sorcery. Clever naming, by the way, putting the hash at the beginning, alphabetization, excellent choice, good work. But the Sword and Sorcery was designed around touch interfaces, so everything's kind of big. Like when you click on something, you get the little ring around it, and you do this stuff. It's like, oh, I know what I'm doing. In Machinarium, since it wasn't designed around touch interfaces at first, although it plays just fine, and you should try it, there are moments where you're like, I can't see what I'm doing because everything's too small and my finger's so big. I get one of those like in Korea. There's the particular brand of sausage you use as a stylus because it has the right capacitance for capacitive stream. This is a real thing. I'm not making this up. I need a stylus or something to play it just right. Although I'm totally getting through it. It's fine. But it's an interesting thing. I didn't realize that was a design consideration when porting things from touch from mouse pointer to touch.
All right.
I'm playing Chrome games.
Thank you, Wolf Puppet.
No problem.
And I believe with that we are done. We're wrapped up.
All right.
So thank you very much for watching. Those of you that are still watching, maybe next week. Let's take a vote and decide whether you prefer the puppet Colt or the actual Colt.
Exactly.
Puppet Colt. Puppet Colt.
I think we should all
whoever
have
wins,
puppets
that's who
next
we'll
week.
invite back next time. So thank you very much, and we will see you in a couple weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.